Do you need a lens hood? Do you not need a lens hood? What if you don't want to use one? Or why do I even need to use one? These are all great questions. And of course, everyone's going to have their own opinions, including me. In this video, I'm going to share the benefits and the drawbacks of using lens hoods in the field as a nature and landscape photographer. And I'll offer some alternative options to using them and let you decide for yourself if you even need to use one. There are no right or wrong answers on this topic, only what best fits your needs and how you like to shoot. Welcome back to the channel, and if this is your first time visiting, welcome as well. This seems to be a topic that a lot of people seem passionate about. As a landscape and nature photographer, I've seen some photographers utilize the lens hood and some who just prefer to leave them back on their equipment shelf collecting dust. So over the years, I've developed a system that works for me that I will be sharing with you, and I'll be approaching it from the standpoint of an outdoor photographer when I'm talking about the benefits and the drawbacks. Stay tuned to the end of the video when I talk about the other options that I use when I'm not using the hood. So first, let's talk about the drawbacks. Might as well start with the negatives and end with the positives, right? So the extra weight. Adding 3 or 4 additional plastic or metal hoods to my backpack and heading into the backcountry can add additional weight that I really prefer not to have. Even though they are plastic, those extra ounces can add up on long trips. Second, the extra bulk. I used to transport my lens hoods attached to my lenses and jam them into my pack, and I always had trouble getting them out. Prime example of that is when I attached the lens hood to my 50mm prime lens on my recent waterfall trip. If you haven't seen that last video, I'll post a link to it here and down below. But you can see me struggling to get the lens out of the bag. And that's primarily because the hood is on in reverse order. So granted, I was trying to do it with one hand holding the video camera and the other one while I was trying to pull it out of the bag, but that extra bulk does make for a tight squeeze in the bag. It's not very wind friendly. I tend to photograph near lakes and mountains, mostly in the Adirondack Park of upstate New York, and there always tends to be a good amount of wind in those places. So adding a lens hood to the front of my lens tends to make it act like a sail, and it will move my camera around even while on a tripod. Wide angle lenses may not have as large a lens hood, and there's less surface area, but I have noticed some softness in my photos where I had the hood attached and the wind caused some vibration. The other challenge to utilizing the lens hood is that I have to constantly take it off the lens, put it on the lens, take my photos, then take it back off the lens, reverse it, put it back on the lens, and then turn around and place it back into my backpack. That whole process just takes time. It's a hassle for me to constantly put them on and take them off if I'm out in the field, just shooting nature and landscapes. Finally, you can't mount the hood onto your lens when you've got filters. I use a leaf filter system that allows me to mount filters to the front end of my lenses, and granted, I don't use as many filters any longer since getting away from the graduated neutral density filters, but I still like to use variable density filters for long exposures, and a circular polarizer obviously for removing reflections or enhancing colors. So I still like to use filters in certain situations and capture the scene in camera as opposed to sitting behind a computer screen and editing those photos to get the contrast levels just right or remove reflections out of an image. So most of my lenses have a filter ring mounted on them permanently. And this allows me to mount the filter holder directly onto the lens. And I like to leave these filter rings on all of the time as opposed to screwing them on or taking them off. However, this prevents me from being able to use the lens hood because it will not fit over this adapter ring. And even if I did unscrew the filter ring to mount the lens hood, I couldn't get the filters to actually sit on top of the front of the lens. Now, lens hoods aren't all bad for outdoor photography. They do offer protection against many factors. Obviously, stray light protection. The hood is great for helping to keep that stray light from hitting the front glass element of your lens and causing that haze when light hits it. And typically it's light that's coming from the side. It can create that hazing or flares on your lens, and it doesn't have to be just sunlight. I've found that moonlight can also create that effect, or street lamps, pretty much any light source. Of course, if the light is shining directly into your lens, then the hood's not going to help much, but it can be helpful for those instances where the light is to the left or to the right of you, just out of frame, and the light is still hitting the glass. Now, keep in mind that many photographers like that look and may want to make a photo with the lens flare in their shot as a creative element to the photo. There's no right or wrong here, just what you're looking for as your goal in the final image. They do help protect the lens from falls. Now, I've heard some photographers compare the lens hood to a bumper on your car. You know, if you get a minor bump, then the rest of the car will be protected, it's fine. But if your camera falls from a relatively good height, there isn't much that's going to protect either the lens front element or the glass, the mechanical or electronic inner workings of the lens as well. For the most part, I don't use a camera strap when I'm out shooting outdoors, so I can see where a lens hood would help protect the lens element if you're shooting weddings or concerts and you're swinging your camera around while it's hanging from your shoulder from a strap. But in the 25 plus years that I've been shooting nature and outdoor landscapes, I've never dropped a lens with the hood on. I'll consider myself lucky. Most of the time before removing the lens from the camera, I would reverse mount the hood on and take the camera lens off the camera and put it back in my bag. However, I can see how this could be a benefit in close quarters with other people and carrying the camera on a strap. So the other thing a lens hood can do is protect the lens from moisture. So if it's raining or snowing, a lens hood is a great item to keep on the lens to minimize that moisture from landing on the front lens element. There's nothing worse than getting home after shooting in a thunderstorm or in a snow flurries, downloading your images into your computer and realizing that you have water spots on those images that have to be edited out of every single image. Waterfall spray is another matter altogether. Manufacturers also promote the fact that the lens hood will protect your lens from fingerprints and scratches. I've read some where they think it's inevitable that you're going to actually get a scratch on your lens, and the lens hood will prevent that. I somewhat agree with that, I guess, but a lens hood will help prevent a lot of scratches or fingerprints from touching the lens. But most of the lens coatings that they have are very scratch resistant. They actually vaporize metals into the glass under high temperatures. So unless you never really cover your lens elements, I think this would be rare. Again, after many years of shooting, I haven't gotten any deep scratches on my lenses, so I consider myself pretty lucky. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I wanted to share my options with you for using a lens hood and what has worked well for me over the years. I will post a link below for any of the items that I use in my bag that I'm going to mention as those additional options. Please note that I'm not sponsored or reimbursed by any of the companies that I mentioned. They're just what I use and what I'm used to, and you are welcome to use them or any other product that's similar. Also, if you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a thumbs up, and if you like this type of content and would like to see other tips, tricks, techniques, or trips, please consider subscribing and hit that notification bell to be notified of any future videos. One of the items that I use to protect the lens element, because I use this adapter ring, is something called the lens coat hoodie. They're made of neoprene, and they come in a variety of sizes to fit any lens, and they help to protect your lens from dust, dirt, moisture, and from impacts, so you don't have to worry about the lens element getting busted. I also shade the lens with my hand or my body to prevent the stray light from hitting the front lens element. So when I'm out shooting landscapes and I notice that the sun's hitting the front lens element, I'll stand in between myself and the sun, just out of view of the lens, so that I can keep the light from hitting the front lens element and getting that haze or the lens flare on the lens, or I'll shade it with my hand. Another item that I like to use is something called the Flex Lens Shade. This allows me to put a shade directly onto the lens using a Velcro strap, and I can free up my hands. It only weighs 1.2 ounces, and it can be adjusted to any position on the lens. It also helps to protect the lens from any moisture. Any rain or snow lands on it, will bead off and will run right off. So I hope that you found this information helpful. Also, be sure to leave a comment if you agree or disagree with any of the information I've posted here, or if you've had any questions or suggestions. I'd love to receive them as well. I'll respond to any inquiries or questions that you may have. I also have an Instagram account and a website, which I'll link below, and I can be contacted there as well. As always, thanks for taking time to watch this video. Now, get outside and capture some great light.